call the meeting of the Roseville City Council to order, March 17th at 6 p.m. And Pat Trudgeon, will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Bauer.
Here.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Here.
Acting Mayor Groff.
Here.
Mayor Rowe. Councilmember Strawn.
Thank you. And Mayor Rowe said he would be absent this evening, as did Councilmember Strawn. First on the agenda, I would like to introduce our city attorney, Rachel Tierney's on my right, at the end of the dais, and on my left is Pat Trudgeon, our city manager. And we have various department heads in the audience. The first thing we will do is say the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you are willing and able, stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item is to approve the agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the agenda by the staff? Or are there any?
No, nothing. No changes, Acting Mayor.
Is there anything from the council? Robin?
Yes.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Yes, I'd like to pull item F, the scoreboard.
And that's under 10.
Yep.
Okay, we will move that up. That was on the consent agenda, so that would be put up under item 6 when we consider items that are removed from the consent agenda. I might have to be reminded of that.
Okay.
Is there anything else? Any other changes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on it? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda for this evening. And we have public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on something that is not on the agenda tonight? I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone from the public who would want to comment on anything that is not on the agenda tonight? Seeing no one, we will move on to the next item, which is recognitions and donations. And we will have our Parks and Rec Director, Matt Johnson, present that item.
Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. Acting Mayor, that throws off the whole preparation.
Doesn't it?
I'm here tonight with really an exciting couple of items here, and that is to accept some extremely generous donations from folks in our community to an important capital project that we are planning on, the one Councilmember Schroeder just talked about, which is the replacement of the scoreboard at the John Rose, Minnesota Oval. That is an extremely important part of our infrastructure over there. It's used by all of our different user groups. Many of them have their own volunteers trained to utilize it for their specific events and activities. So as we moved forward, kind of mobilizing towards the replacement, we reached out to each of our user groups to find out what it was that they needed in the scoreboard and to make sure that we were meeting their needs. Over the course of those conversations, a couple of them came forward, most notably to begin with the Friends of the Oval Foundation, and have proposed donation of $40,000 to really allow us to go forward above and beyond what the city was capable of doing on its own, to donate to a higher definition scoreboard and a slightly larger scoreboard than we were planning on. As a reminder, the Friends of the Oval Foundation is one of our 3 foundations that really exists to support our activities at the Oval. In addition to contributing regularly to our capital projects, they also annually contribute to our operating budget through an annual donation. So they're great partners there, and we couldn't do our great work at the Oval without them. The other group that came forward and expressed an interest in supporting it and has now donated $56,000 to the project is the Midway Speed Skating Club. The Midway Speed Skating Club is one of the largest speed skating clubs in the United States. They do offer a world-class speed skating experience right here in the Twin Cities, and a lot of their club members are Roseville residents. They also are our largest ice renter over at the Oval. A larger scoreboard will benefit their operations. It'll make it easier to read times when we hold our larger events. They're currently actually renting a board when they have larger events, so it really will impact them positively. And because of that, they have contributed $56,000 to the project. Combined total of the 2 donations is $96,000. I should add that really our entire Oval community will benefit from these projects, whether it's bandy, hockey, public skating, summer programs. If you're there for a summer movie, it's going to be such a better experience because of this. And so we are really, really grateful for these donations. And they do really, it is a great way to highlight how Roseville continues to come forward to support these outstanding projects. And with that, as staff, we're certainly recommending acceptance of the donations, and we do have resolutions in the packets. So I'll turn it back to you, Acting Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Is there anyone from the public who wants to comment on this? Seeing no one, we'll move on. Is there any discussion from the council? Councilmember Schroeder?
I just want to say, I think this is great that we have such, these organizations to help out like this, and to have that kind of donation come forward to do a project like this. I just wanted to make sure and thank the organizations and say this is really awesome. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Councilmember Bauer?
Second what Councilmember Schroeder stated, also wanted to state, I just think how wonderful it is having the city work with residents and with groups like this to come together to a common solution that does benefit everyone.
And I would echo those comments. I think we're very fortunate in Roseville to have the active groups that support our the Police Foundation. There's several of them for parks. They do a lot of work that makes it possible for us to do more in the city than we could on our general budget. Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, we could have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Schroeder. I got to make my notes here.
There are two resolutions. Is that for both resolutions or just?
Yes, it's for both. Yep.
Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Any further discussion? If not, I would call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Is there anything else you needed on that, Mr. President?
Nope, that should be it. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is our Arbor Day. So every year we have a proclamation on April 25th is Arbor Day, and we have a proclamation to read, and then we'll discuss it. Whereas Roseville's trees have been a significant element of our community because of their beauty and importance to our environment, and whereas trees are an increasingly vital resource for Roseville, enriching our lives by purifying air and water, helping to conserve soil and energy, and serving as recreational settings and wildlife habitat of all kinds. And whereas activities such as construction, damage, and pollution, as well as drought and disease, have damaged and destroyed many trees, which are therefore in need of replacement, and whereas the city of Roseville seeks to positively impact our environment by planting trees and ensuring that these trees are nurtured and protected, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas trees assist with drainage and flood mitigation and reduce city costs for sewer and water treatment, and whereas everyone is encouraged to care for our trees and plant as many trees as possible, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council hereby declare April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the city of Roseville, County of Ramsey, State of Minnesota, USA. Do I hear a motion for that proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Bauer, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder. Call for a vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries.
Item 6.
Thank you. So we are to the one that was removed from the consent agenda, and it is, was it number F?
Yes, the scoreboard.
Scoreboard. I'm just going to page back to it so I have it referenced. And you can go ahead and discuss it, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I'm in support of this. I just wanted to point out a few corrections on this.
Okay.
that I believe the council just needs to be aware
Yeah.
of. First of all, just some small things on the original, our request for council action, underneath budget implications. The first paragraph, it talks about the capital improvement fund of 233,500. That should actually be 223.
Okay,
So there's a correction of 10,000 there.
yeah.
And then in the actual agreement, this is, and I don't know if we need to have this corrected before we vote on it or not. That's why I wanted to pull it forward. If you look under the agreement, you have under number 3, the contract price is 304,500. And then under the payment procedures, which is number 4, when you add up those payments, it's $3,539. So the payments doesn't equal the contract amount, and so it needs to be corrected.
So which one is the correct amount? Were you able to
The 304,500. So the contract price is correct, but the payments seem to be off. So I'm not sure what the procedure would be in the contract.
Mr. Johnson come up. I think we should note as part of the motion of entering an agreement what that correct amount is, but
Okay.
Mr. Johnson can talk
Yeah,
about how we do it.
we would not pay beyond that total amount absent a change order. So what it amounts to is that was retainage and a lot of numbers moving around at
Right,
the end of the day.
absolutely.
And so we can either strike that, which we would do prior to having the vendor sign it,
Okay.
and just have the total contract amount. But regardless, we as the city would not award more than that total
Right.
contract
I
amount.
just think it'd be important that they equal each other. So before it gets signed, I think it needs to be however it needs to be adjusted.
We can do that.
So I guess when we move to approve, I would say once it's corrected, might be the wording on that.
Absolutely.
And then my final question, and I'm glad you're up here. Thank you. You can ask on the Exhibit 2. There's a chart on the summary, and I just have a question on if you are looking at the columns across. It looks like the total committed doesn't equal that 359,500, but it's the total of the quoted total, and I just want to make sure that that's maybe the quoted total is a separate
Correct.
piece from the columns that are in here?
Yeah, so I'm
Okay.
I'm shooting from memory here, so I'm going to pull it up the exhibit. But what it is what is in there is a quote that we received related to sound system updates, which they essentially had informed us this would be the time to do it. We have not committed to doing that work.
Okay.
We're holding back funds for contingency first and foremost. So it's on the budget, but not actually any sort of commitment to doing the work. It was just on there as our overall. Candidly, I probably should have struck it before it went to you all. It's an internal document.
Okay.
But that's, yes,
So the total committed, which is really, if you add it up, is 334,500.
the total, well, and that includes the contingency, which actually is not committed.
Right. So should it be, so that's why I'm wondering, should that be 300 and?
Well, the total that's
24?
committed will be 304,500.
Okay.
We include the contingency for note just to ensure that the council knows that by coming forward with that, that doesn't necessarily mean we're done. If there is contingency items, we wanted to hold that back. So that 5% construction contingency was intentionally left in there for potential change orders.
Okay.
Which we've been notified of 2 potential things that could come in, but
Okay.
if we thought there was a high probability, we would have included them in the contract. So,
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
because I got confused by the.
Yeah, no, I lesson learned. I'll be more clear on those charts.
Thank you.
Yep.
Though, and like I said, those are just the items I wanted to bring forward.
Thank you for the clarification. Anything else? Mr. Bauer?
Nothing else. Back to you, Mayor.
Are we able to vote on that one?
Yes, so I would suggest the motion would be to enter into an agreement with Think Digital LLC for the purchase, installation, and training of a new scoreboard at the Oval for a cost not to exceed $304,500. Just to make it very clear.
Yep. Someone willing to make that motion?
I would move with that motion, so I don't have to repeat it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank
Opposed?
you.
Thank you.
We'll go back to our agenda. So we would, at this time, we'll receive information. Is our guest here yet, I wonder?
Acting Mayor, I do not see the representative from Representative McCollum's office. Perhaps he is running late. I would mention that it was just information sharing about some potential funding, community project funding for projects for cities that potentially could apply. I would note that nothing has been decided for fiscal year 2026, so it's still uncertain on that. But I think the office just wanted to make us aware of that information for any potential projects we may have, and there's probably more to come as it develops as far as whether or not it's going to happen in the future. So I think that's all he really wanted to share. So with that, and I'd be happy to share other information if I get from him at a later date.
And if they should be just running late, we can add it into the later on the agenda.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. Next, we will consider adoption of an ordinance implementing the Roseville local sales tax, and Mr. Trudgeon will go over that for us.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So as we've discussed several times, we need to adopt an ordinance to officially implement the local sales tax. As a refresher, on November 5th, 2024, there are two questions on the ballot for our residents to vote on. One was to institute a 0.5% sales tax for a maintenance operations center, and a second one for the license center. As you all well know, question for the maintenance operations center sales tax did pass, the license center did not. We have discussed the implementation of this ordinance several times, most recently at the end of February, and the council indicated that we should bring forward for adoption the implementation of the sales tax for the maintenance operations center. We need to do that before April 1st in order for it to be effective starting July 1st, 2025. So in front of you tonight is an ordinance drafted by our city attorney that complies with all legal requirements that the Department of Revenue needs. So we ask for your approval of that. Would also note in the staff report, we did ask for approval of a summary ordinance so we could publish a shorter version of that ordinance. That requires supermajority. Since we only have 3 members tonight, we cannot vote on that. So it asks the city council to vote on the regular ordinance, and then what we will do is we'll bring back the summary ordinance at our meeting next Monday, the 24th, on the consent agenda for the council to officially approve that. And the reason we do the summary ordinance is because it's shorter to publish in the newspaper and saves the city dollars in publishing it in the St. Paul Pioneer Press. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. And like I said, we're looking for adoption of the ordinance tonight.
Are there any questions from council? Is there anyone from the public who wants to speak to this item? Seeing no one? Any further discussion on the?
I think we've talked about it enough.
Yes, it has been discussed several times, so I agree. Well, then I would entertain a motion only for the first part, is motion to adopt the ordinance to implement the local sales tax for Roseville.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries, and then we will, as the city manager said, we will do the summary next week at the city council meeting. We will still come in before our April 1st deadline so we can notify the state. Next, we have Mr. Frehammer from the Public Works Director, and he will be presenting proposal agreement for the architectural services, and we can discuss that further as we talk about that. Thank you, Mr. Frehammer.
Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. So bringing back this item before you, we did discuss this back at the February 10th meeting about releasing RFP, kind of to take a step back and look at different options for particularly the license, passport center, and dance studio. So with that, I'll do a real quick presentation and show you our recommendations for those services. So as I mentioned, at February 10th, we did release the RFP, or had council approve that RFP. We released that on February 11th. They were due on March 3rd. We did receive 4 proposals, which those are all included in the packet, so hopefully you've seen them. So really just a real quick description of what was included in that RFP. So phase one, the main tasks included providing an update of the cost estimates for both the maintenance operations center as well as the civic campus master plan. So basically everything that was in that pre-design project, just get updated costs, because as you recall, those costs were put together in 2022. There was a lot of inflation tied with that at the time, so want to make sure we get an updated cost on that. Provide a cost estimate for a single-story licensed passport center and dance studio. The current option in the pre-design was a two-story, as well as provide feasibility options to reuse portions of the existing maintenance facility for licensed passport center dance studio use. And then there was also an option to provide feasibility options to reuse a portion of it for other uses such as office space, restaurant, or event space use. And then with that, overall, there would be a provider report and presentation to council. That overall goal had that presentation to get back to council by May 19th, 2025. We did include a phase two, but basically everything in the proposal is based on phase one services. If council wanted additional information in the future, we could go into phase two to look into further options. That's kind of how that was set up. So like I said, we did receive 4 proposals. Staff, consisting of the city manager, myself, and the Parks and Rec director, reviewed the proposals. So we had proposals from Bloom, Hayes, and Dobbs, BKV, HCM, and Wold. Overall, based on the scoring criteria in the RFP, the overall best total score was BKV, and that's who staff recommended. They were also had the lowest price base fee, and then they did also include some optional facility stuff, which we'll get into in just a second. So staff overall did recommend going with BKV Group. They did have the highest scoring proposal overall. They met all the proposal requirements. The team consists of Ortel Architects and Krause Anderson Construction. That is also similar. That design team was also part of the Civic Campus pre-design project. They had a very detailed and thoughtful schedule, meeting our requirements and looking ahead on how we want to move this project forward. Overall, they did have the best, from staff's perspective, had the best project narrative and design fee. Staff overall thought their familiarity with the project was an overall benefit. Even though the scope was a little different in the parameters than the pre-design project, we thought they did provide good value. We did reach out to them, kind of discuss maybe some concerns having the same staff look at it, but they mentioned it's very common in the industry to have new parameters thrown at them, and then they look at it through a different lens, which obviously with some budget concerns on the licensed passport center, that's kind of what we're doing here. So yeah, otherwise, with that, so staff is recommending, then they also did provide an optional service. BKV included optional service to complete a facility condition assessment. So this is a little bit different. This would actually be looking at the existing structure. So for example, if you kept the shell of the building, this would really provide a cost estimate of how that existing shell would look in your CIP. Does the roof have good life on it? What would your future cost be? Because everything else would be kind of inside to remodel it, but what life do you basically have left in the building? So they proposed that an additional cost of $7,500. Staff overall thought if we're looking at the big picture of how to reutilize that facility potentially, that would be a good cost to know, because obviously you can reuse it, but if you're going to have a lot of costs in 10 years to say redo the roof, I'm assuming we'd want to know that up front. So with that, staff would recommend the council approve entering into a professional service agreement with BKV for phase 1 services, including the optional facility condition assessment. So with that, I can open up to council for any questions that the council may have.
Any questions? Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes, what is the age of the maintenance building?
So it does vary. So the latest remodel was done in 2004. So that's kind of the offices for a lot of the admin staff over there, as well as I would say the main shop facility. That was 2004. The north garage, which is on the very north end of Woodhill, that's probably 1950s. I don't exactly know the age, but that's the oldest part. And then the Parks and Rec portion, that's been remodeled a few times, but I believe that was built in the early 70s. So certainly there's a part of it that's newer, but there's also two very much older parts of the building.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bauer?
Can you expand a little bit more on your scoring and what you mean by narrative?
Yeah, so each consultant provided kind of how they would tackle the scope, what kind of details of what they would do for the individual tasks identified. So just kind of their interpretation of our scope. Overall, like I said, BKV was probably provided the most detail into the narrative, explaining what their process would be for that. So overall, we thought some of the other ones kind of just regurgitated the narrative without getting into real details of how they would attack the individual tasks.
Thank you.
I assume on the 7,500, if we go that route to do an analysis of the existing building, that would include checking to see if there's asbestos to be removed or other types of.
I don't know if it would go into that detail. That could potentially be identified. I guess we'd have to detail that scope out.
Yeah,
But certainly would identify the age and condition, but I think if there was something pretty evident, that'd stick out pretty easily. But obviously they're not going to peel up every
no.
thing, but obviously take a quick look at all the exteriors, the roofs, the HVAC systems, kind of the big key components that theoretically you wouldn't need to replace or you would just have to just modify if you convert it to a license center.
But just with that age, the 50s,
Yeah,
that
so
was very typical to
correct.
have.
Potentially, the north garage would probably be the most risk, I would say. But maybe that's also the one that has the least opportunity to get remodeled
Right,
than the other ones. So,
right. Well, did you have anything else? Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this one? Just saying no. I think that was all the questions I had. We have discussed this.
I did
Oh,
one last.
Councilmember Schroeder.
Sorry,
That's
I'm a little
okay.
slow here. I just found my
I don't find your notes.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing.
So the last, I think my one concern about using the same firm again was we had those giant contingency numbers in there. And I would want to make sure if that's not going to happen again, that we'd actually have more actual estimated costs versus just this big contingency number. So I think that would be important because in my view, having those big contingency numbers really didn't tell us a lot. And I know that was done trying to project into, build it in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So I know that's part of it. So I would hope that since we're talking about building it soon, that the numbers would be much more concise that way.
yeah, certainly we're only looking out potentially a year, so that should be a lot tighter. Obviously, they know what the market is right now, so which is a reason for the update. So no, that number should be a lot tighter. There'll be some contingency on there, but yeah, it shouldn't need to be contingency because you don't know what it's going to be like 5 years from now.
Right. Thank you. Sorry, that was it.
No, that's okay. I did have a question. They were going to consult with Kraus Anderson, it sounded like, on that.
Correct. Yeah. So Kraus Anderson would be one of their sub-consultants. That would be one of their major tasks is to look at the actual construction side. Kraus Anderson would also be the one doing the facility condition assessment.
Right. Is there any other discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion. Would be a motion to approve the professional services agreement for architectural services with BKV Architects.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Bauer, seconded by Schroeder. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. You can go ahead with that. Thank you very much, Mr. Fraham.
Thank you.
Wait, there's more.
Yes, well, Mr. Frammer gets to stay here for a bit today. So next, we're going to the proposal for consider water meter purchases. And Mr. Frammer will present again.
Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. So just a real quick background. So the city currently has a automatic meter reading system set up in place. We did establish that back in 2010. So what that is basically is we could get theoretically kind of continuous meter readings. One of the big advantages is that it is theoretically a staff, saves a lot of staff time. We don't need to go out and do the old traditional walk up to a meter or even do the drive-by, so it does save a lot of time. The other key advantage of an AMR system is since we get continuous leads, it does provide us the opportunity to send residents leak letters when their waters, they have toilet running, so that way they don't, instead of getting billed quarterly, they'd only get that once every 3 quarters, and all of a sudden your bill went up with $500 because you've had a toilet leak. So that's some of the advantages. But our existing system, and I'll get into the presentation here, we've had some existing issues with our system, so we are looking to upgrade that. So real quick about our existing meter system. So we do have almost 11,000 water meters in the system, and that changes as buildings add and houses go down. Of that, the vast majority of them are considered residential, so just the typical 5/8 inch meter. So we use this both to bill for water consumption as also sanitary sewer consumption. So currently we have a Neptune automatic meter reading system. Basically we have a radio installed, and it sends a signal to the collectors, and then we get that and we take that data and base our utility bills based on that. The current system, council approved back in 2010, so this system was started back in 2010. It was fully implemented back in 2015. So it took us about 5 years before we swapped out and got everyone on this system. And then to the right, it's just kind of a layout of the meters, sizes that we have. So like I said, the vast majority are the smaller ones. We do have a couple larger ones. The large 6-inch ones we have, we're actually hoping to get rid of those here shortly. So hopefully the largest meter in the future will be a 4-inch actually. So radio issues. So back when this was installed, we went with what's called the R450 system. This system was supposed to have a pretty small failure rate. It's actually had a lot of radio issues. It's more of a hardware software thing issue, but it's had a lot of issues. We did work with the vendor. Back in 2020, we started converting these to the R900 system, which was a different system we could have went with back in the day, but we chose the R450s to go with. The vendor did provide us the collectors to do that, but we've been basically paying a warranty upgrade to the 900s, because the 900s was considered a newer, better system at the time, but we chose to go the 450s. So as we've been converting them, the 900s, that has solved the problem, but we've only converted 30% of them over. With that being said, the current vendor has said the 450s is really no longer supported. They're having a hard time getting parts, so if we had a collector fail, we'd lose those areas. The worst problem is we've replaced them randomly throughout the city, so it's not like it's just one area, isolated part of town. So they've really recommended we convert to the R900 system or look to a different vendor. So most other cities who were on this previously 450 have already either changed systems or upgraded, so we're one of the last. So when they brought that up to us, we've started looking at what other options we had. With our current vendor, our 10-year warranty, all of our existing radios are past their 10-year because the list would have been the last year and even would have been on it. So basically now we're going to have to pay the full upgrade price. And then just related to that, we did replace most of the water meters back in 2010, but they are starting to get near, typically you look for a 20-year design life on meters before you replace, because as meters age, they slowly start slowing down. So that's less revenue that we measure, so it can lead to revenue loss. I'm not saying there's like dramatic drop off, but they do slow down over time. So we did look into options. So we met with different vendors, including our current vendor, to look at options. So number one that we're presenting is just upgrade our current radios to the R900 system, kind of like we've currently been doing. We would still need to replace 70% of the radios. We potentially have to look to adding 2 more. So one big key difference on our collector system. So one key difference was the old R900 system. One advantage of the old 450s was it gave out a longer signal than the 900s. So we basically replaced, when they provided us 4 new ones, we just put those in our current location. But we do potentially have a lack of coverage if we fully convert the whole system over. But currently just looking at replacing that in kind. And option A would just be to replace the meters at a later date, more closer to the 20-year. And then option B would be to replace the meters at the same time. So this is kind of laid out in both options for option B. One of the key things is replacing meters or radios is very impactful. We have to schedule appointments get a technician out there. If we're swapping a radio, swapping a meter, probably only takes us 10 more minutes. From prior experience, both with the lead investigation that we did more recently, as well as the meter replacement or just radio failures, getting residents to schedule a time to get in their house to do a meter is a big pain. It can take a lot of work. Some residents are great. You send them a letter. We have a meter, an appointment scheduled the next day. Others can take lots of letters to get a meter because we do need to schedule a time to do that. So as you'll see later on the presentation, we're recommending that we do both those for that kind of inconvenience as well as staff savings. The other option is looking at a whole new system, but to upgrade using what is from a different vendor called Mueller. The new vendor, their system is kind of a two collector system. The system they have does use a local collection system very similar to our current vendor. We put these collector sites out and about. They collect a signal and send them to us. They also have a network as a service that some cities also use. This could be a secondary use in the future if we wanted to go to that. Would end up being a vendor maintained system, and it also would be pay as you go. We wouldn't maintain it, but we'd have to pay a fee for us to send the signal out. So right now we're just recommending going with the local collector, but just wanted to point out that there is a secondary option in the future if, say, collectors became bad. This system is a lot more adaptable than the current system. The other big key with this system, it has two-way technology on the radios. That's really key because they can actually send upgrades out to the signals. Currently, once we put a radio in a house right now, that hardware is basically the day it's put in. The new system, if they found they had a software glitch or whatever, they can provide updates to the system. They have that technology for other reasons that we don't need, but it is a technology advantage over our current system. So option A, similar to option 1, would be we could replace the meters at a later date and just do the radios at this time. Option B would be replace the meters at this time, so we're just doing one appointment. As I mentioned, be a lot less impact to residents, and then the Mueller meters also have some advantages over the existing meters, which I'll get into. So just a little bit of the pros and cons. Obviously, we can just keep going with what we're currently been doing and maybe just accelerate that, which is really option A. It would be the cheapest option. It does solve the radio problem, and obviously it currently works with our existing system. Some of the negatives about that would be the meters would need to be replaced at a later date. We'd most likely be starting to schedule long-term meter replacement with residents over starting in about the next 5 years. And a big amount of additional staff time in terms of sending additional letters and also going out to their appointments for a second time. Option 2 is looking to do a upgrade with Mueller. Overall pros, staff feels this is a much more reliable system. It's got a lot more fail-safes built into it. It is upgradable, and then we'd be going with the collector system to start with for sure. Option B, replace meters at the same time. As I mentioned, we'd recommend going this route because it saves impact to residents as well as staff time. The other big thing that upgrading these meters are, the meters are more accurate. Just a little bit of upgrade with technology. Since they're newer meters, they measure a wider range of flows, so we can actually measure down to a lower amount, so we can detect lower leak levels. So both a benefit to the resident, but also theoretically we can track actual water use a little more accurate. And then another key advantage of this is we can actually measure temperature in the water. So for us, that's a real big key. We do have 200 residents that are either on tier 1 or tier 2. The tier 1 residents, when we know the frost is going really deep, we send them letters. If we had this system set up, we could base it on their actual temp. Because right now we just guess. On a lot of years we don't send letters out, but if we know it's really cold, we send letters out. But once we tell them to start running water, that we give them basically credit for everything that they're not using. So any water they're running, the city's kind of eating that cost. If we had this system, we'd be able to specifically say, hey, your water's at, whatever threshold, 37 degrees, start running your water. And we can do that one by one instead of sending letters to everyone at once. It also does provide us, if we have people on our system that we're not aware of, we can catch them before they get added onto the system, because the only way you get added to our tier 1 list is you freeze. So it's really an after the fact solution. So that is one key advantage of measuring that, and we'd be able to, we basically get that reading at the same time we're getting flow measurements in. Obviously, some of the cons with this, it is a larger cost to do all that at once. And then if we chose to go with option A, it would be impacts to residents twice if we decide to go with that option. So real quick, just on the costs on the left are with our current vendor, and the costs on the right are with our with the Mueller vendor. So the radios actually are cheaper with the radios and meters are both slightly cheaper with the Mueller option. So it would be one key thing based out of this. And then the next kind of key is just looking at the cost comparison. So we have both options 1A and 1B. Obviously, both 1A and 2A are the cheapest option. Those are looking at just doing the radios. Adding 1B and 2B are with all the other costs. So the Mueller one includes adding the collectors and project management as well as all the meters. So overall, options 1B and 2B are very similar, but overall staff feels the advantages of going to a new system are significantly more valuable, so that our recommendation would be going with the Mueller option. So overall, looking at the budgets, we both pay for meters out of both our water and sewer budgets. Most of it's in capital, so a few years ago we started adding money knowing that we would need to do this. So we have money set aside in 2025 through 2028, as well as kind of long-term operating costs of $60,000 built into that. So over the next 5 years, we have just under $2.5 million. If we do go with option 2B, the recommended Mueller option, there still is about $480,000 in capital that would either need to be added, or we could potentially reduce one of the other line items in the capital, like just water main or sanitary sewer replacements, to pick up that gap. The other thing is the attachment 1 in the handout shows it doing it over a 5-year period. We actually, the proposal they gave us was over 6 years, so we do have a 6-year cost. We could also spread that out. That may actually need to happen if we go this route, because one of the reasons we need to spread this out is we are proposing to do all this with staff in-house. Last time we replaced meters and radios, we did it mostly in-house. And then at the end, we wanted to just get it done, so we hired an outside vendor. But we'd propose to do that in-house. But obviously, we can't go into 10,000 homes overnight. So that's why we're proposing doing that over a 5-year period. But it potentially could roll into a 6th. Or that could be a budget reason, too, to spread it over 6 years. And then, as I mentioned, we could there is there's network as a service that could be an option in the future, where that would take the collector system off the city's hands. That would be about a $44,000 cost annually, but that would take that off. We're not proposing that at this time. So overall, as I kind of mentioned before, staff would recommend going with the Mueller system and replace radios and meters at the same time. Basically approve entering into a purchase order with Mueller for purchase of radios and meters. This basically locks in the pricing for 6 years. It does allow us flexibility if we kind of, in that handout 1, we kind of showed what we think we could do, but certainly if we can't do that or other priorities change, we could delay that or accelerate that too as well. But we'd have the pricing locked in. Overall, this would allow for complete radio and meter replacement over the next 6 to 7 years. As I mentioned, allow staff to spread the work out as we'd be doing this in-house. Like I said, one key thing we feel is be way less impact to residents, as well as save significant staff time by doing it all at one install. And then we would have, by the end of the replacement schedule, most of the meters are going to be already approaching the end of their life cycle. So it lines up. It's a little bit earlier than we would like, but if we need to do the radios, it seems logical to do it all at once. So with that, staff would recommend consider the 6-year proposal to implement the Mueller system, approve the purchase order. Like I said, we'll lock in the pricing over the next 6 years, and we'll begin the transition to the Mueller system. So I know that's a lot of data that was thrown out. So with that, I will turn it over to council for any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Freehammer? Councilmember Bauer?
Do you have is pricing locked in for meters other than the 5 days? In your presentation, you note in all your calculations are based off 5/8 meters. So if you look at this slide, you have it.
So we only have the pricing on currently on this proposal, yes, just for the 5/8.
So then the calculation here, you have roughly $360,000 for capital improvement plan for 2025. But if we were to do this, is there going to be more than that because we have meters greater than 5 bays throughout the city? Not many, but
Yeah, not many. There will be some. Some of those meters, though, some of the really large ones, we will potentially just rebuild those. There's some that we just won't flat up replace. We would probably, like all the, let's see, we have the, so like the 3/4 and 1 inch, those pricing is probably going to be just slightly above what the current one is. But that is not locked in on this, under this proposal.
so we should expect the cost then listed later on in the presentation to be a little bit larger than what is currently
Correct.
listed.
So, and yeah, so the other thing related to that, so yeah, so based on this layout, none of those large ones, so both the Mueller system and the Neptune, neither one of those are accounted for. So even if we stuck with Neptune, that cost would be reflected. But yeah, long term, there'll be a little bit for those larger ones as well.
Do you have an idea what the additional
If I had
cost,
to guess,
like in terms of magnitude?
let's see, we have, so just under, so 1,000 for paying, let's see. If I had to guess, like the 1 inch meters would probably be about $200 to $250. So, maybe another 200, 300,000.
And even a 3-inch, you think? Because we don't, I mean, the 4-inch is only
Yeah, we don't have a lot of
those.
them. And like I said, some of the really, really big ones, they're actually beneficial to kind of fix them in place. Where you can just basically pull the guts out and put new components in because there's so much material already in them. So that's what we did on a few of the larger ones last time, but that'll have to happen over a certain period of time.
Oh, I see. So you're suggesting that we can.
So like I said, I know for sure like the 3/4, 1 inch, basically probably through the 3 inch, those would all for sure probably get swapped out
Okay.
with a different one. The 4, or if we did the 6, like I said, 6 is probably coming off the books hopefully in the next few months. But the 4 inch would probably get rebuilt.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schroeder?
So would we be running both systems then until that was completely replaced?
Correct. So that one very good question. So yes, we would be running both systems. As we added one to one system, we pull off the other. So it's really not that difficult to run both. We just have to run reports out of both. So what we currently do is we grab the data from the collectors and then we push that to our current software. Basically, we'd be doing that with 2. Really not a lot of more work, but it is 2 more things to track. As you add one, you got to remove it for the other. So certainly that will be something over the next 6 years. Now, as we add, the way we basically pay for the software as we go is as we add one, annually we pay to operate per meter. As we add one to potentially Mueller, you're pulling it off Neptune. So this cost generally even out. But yes, we would have to maintain 2. In a perfect world, you would do this over a 1 or 2 year period, so that time would be less. But we know that we do it. We've already discussed this with finance. If we go forward with this, we'd probably tweak a few things how we do it. Right now, finance staff does a little more of the pushing and pulling. Public Works might do that for other reasons as well. But yeah, we will be operating 2 systems potentially for 6 years.
We'll have to keep a close eye on that to make sure we don't have any errors in billing.
Yeah, so we are pretty confident this is the Mueller system would work. Mounds View very recently went to this. They are on the exact same finance system as we are, so we're very confident it'll work. There's a lot. This is installed locally, lots of other places, but Mounds View in a lot of ways is exactly like we're set up with the same system. So we're very confident that we're not going to have any issues. It's just like I said, we are going to have to. Certain accounts are going to be pulled out of one, and certain are the other, but it all ends up in the same system. So when it gets pushed out on utility billing, the residents won't notice anything different from their end.
Good. And then how many conversions are you going to do a month, would you say? Because if you're talking like 10,000 homes,
Yeah. So.
I mean, in 5 years, that'd be like, what, 200 a year?
So under our rough, based on the budget, the first year we're looking at doing about 1,100.
Okay.
So, but we probably wouldn't start that till July. So, that'd be about 200 a month.
Wow.
So about 100 a week. So 20 a day.
You have
potential.
staff to do
So
this?
talking with utility staff. So currently when we do, right now, we only schedule about 4 meter appointments a day, but a lot of that is we don't know which part of town you're gonna be in. If we go with this, we will isolate the part of town that we go after. We're gonna set some criteria up on which ones we go. We're gonna go as fix this, fail. Obviously, if they have an issue with their existing meter, we're gonna fix those. But otherwise, we are gonna try to be proactive. We do want to get if we go with this, we're gonna get everyone who is on a tiered list, we're gonna get them an upgraded meter, so we can put that into effect right away. But then we'll just start going geographically by town. When we do that, we can, instead of scheduling two appointments in a 3-hour window, we can schedule 4 or 5.
Okay.
The hardest part is actually getting there. Once you're in to someone's house, it can go really, really quick. 15, 20 minutes, we're in and out. So yes, we will ramp up. Currently, we just have 1 technician doing this. We would ramp that up. In future years, we'd have more time to do it because we'll have a longer year. So for example, we'd be up to just about 1,300 in 2026. Now the budget does go up in 2027, so we're up to about 3,000. So it will be a heavy lift, but we're pretty confident we can do that, especially if we, like I said, we isolate the neighborhoods.
With current staff.
With current staff, yep, we for sure would do this all in-house. We would not look to do that. We got quotes from our current vendor. It's about $100 per radio to have them install it. So that's certainly a cost we don't want to incur. That would add a significant cost. It would almost make $1 million just for installs.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I was just.
So, but that's also why we spread it out.
Seemed ambitious, that's why I asked.
Yes, but that's why the Mueller vendor originally, most cities try to do this in, like I said, about a 2 or 3 year. We're like, that's not going to work, because if we try to do it in 2 or 3 years, we are going to have to hire outside help or staff up, and we know we didn't want to go that option. So we think 6 years is still, like I said, 5 years we think we can do. Potentially needs to slide into a 6. It might just artificially do that with residents potentially not scheduling appointments and whatnot. So
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Just looking through my notes, I think that for me, the added being able to identify the tiers is really important. I mean, people do expect to have water, and it's pretty big hardship when they're out without water for weeks at a time. So I think that being able to check the temperature is a real advantage for the residents, and there are a significant number of them that will notice that change. Do you think that we need to do anything with the CIP earlier than that to make up that $480,000?
I mean, certainly that additional cost. I mean, like I said, I think that can be added at the end.
Do you?
Part of it will just be ramping up as we do that. Certainly, if we move things forward, I mean, it could happen, but we're based on what we're currently looking at. I think if we adopt it at the end, that would suffice for what our needs are.
And then the warranty on this is how many years?
Yeah, so there's a full 10-year warranty on everything, and then it's a prorated warranty for the additional 10 years. So you basically have at least partial warranty for 20 years. So, which should theoretically get us to the next cycle. So hopefully that's 20 or 25 years from now.
Anything else? Councilmember Bauer?
We talked about the capital improvement costs. Are there any changes to the operating side of this between the two options?
So overall, there should be there theoretically is less. So we are currently maintaining the Neptune system. We're currently actually maintaining 2 systems. We're maintaining a 450 system and a 900 system. So we have 8 collectors. The current proposal is only 3. So we'll theoretically maintain less collectors. That should be a little bit of a cost savings. Long term, the software operating, as we add one from Mueller and take one off of Neptune, there's a little bit more cost. I think it was about $5,000 more by the end of 2030 or something like that. So it's slightly more, but every year Neptune increases their cost, so it's pretty insignificant. But there shouldn't be any major operating costs. As we put a new system on board, it should eliminate the existing issues we're having, which is causing some additional staff costs. But from what the budget is seeing, I don't anticipate any major changes to the operating.
And the price increases are locked in for how long with?
So we're locked in on 6 years on the all the purchase order, and including the the software maintenance.
And then after 6 years, can they?
So I would assume typically with our current vendor, we see about a 3% increase on the software costs a year.
But we won't really have a choice to pay that,
Correct. But that's pretty typical.
or whatever they ask.
Yeah, or whatever they ask. But they're like I said, our current vendor, that's been pretty typical. I don't know what the historic terms were, but every year it goes up about 3% of what the previous year's costs were on the software, which is pretty typical of all software that we run in the city.
Just curious if there's a way for us to lock that in somehow.
We could certainly ask if we could lock that in over a longer period of time.
Thank you.
And this system is upgradable with
Yeah, so
remotely.
Yeah, so they, like I said, it's since they have two-way technology. If there's like I said, they find a software glitch or they find something, they can push an update out to the actual radios. Currently, the only way to upgrade the current radios is go there and swap them out.
Right, that's what I understood. Any other discussion? Councilmember Schroeder?
Well, I have to say, I do think Roseville does a good job of upgrading their infrastructure. So it's good to be looking at this before we have more fails. So I think this is one of the infrastructures that the residents, look to us to make sure we are working. As acting Mayor Groff would say, this is something that, we want to make sure it's running and doing well. And so I do say I'm glad that we're looking at it at this point. It's a big number, but we built it into our capital improvement, plan that, we would be doing stuff like this. So I think this is exactly what we should be doing. So, because it's not an if, it's a when. That you have to do this and that you can get on the front of it and do it in a methodical way versus waiting for it to fail and have a big issues with our residents, I think, especially with water. We don't want to screw around with people's water. That's very key. So yes, and again, like I said, we've already built it into our plan. So I think it's something we should do.
I would agree with that. And, when you talk to residents or what do they want from the city? They want their streets to be plowed. They want, these are the basic things that their waters and sewers to work. So I think it is a lot of money, but to have a plan is important, and we have to factor it into our capital improvement plan. So as long as there's a way forward and you've discussed it with the finance department, I think we should discuss it and vote on it. But Mr. Bauer, do you have anything?
Yeah, I would agree with my fellow council members. And I agree that I think it makes sense to combine both the meters and the radios at the same time.
Is someone willing to make a motion? We have, I believe, a motion at,
What is our motion? Let's see here. I would move to implement the Mueller meter system as outlined in our proposal here. And do I need any more than that?
Both the radios and
Both the radios and the meters. Thank you. That was the then piece I was trying to, yes. I would move that.
that's moved by Councilmember Schroeder. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Bauer. Is there any further discussion? Was the maker of the motion? Seconder? Oh, I will ask that. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this? Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item? Seeing no one, we'll move to, we have our motion on the table. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Good discussion. Thank you all. Get back to my agenda. So we are at the council direction on council member well, we aren't going to do that right now.
you can
That
ask
goes-
anybody. We don't have anybody, any items. in
Okay.
consideration, yes, that's correct.
Why don't we just move on to 9, approval for city council minutes? Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? We have them in the February 24th EDA minutes. Were you both here for those?
Yes,
Yes.
I think that, can we move to have all three done at once, or do we have to do?
You can do that.
I move that we approve all 3 sets of the minutes.
Okay. So that would be the February 24th EDA minutes, the February 24th council minutes,
And March 3rd.
March
council.
3rd council minutes.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Bauer. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. We have our minutes approved. And then we are moving on to, that was very quick. We got that all out of the way. The consent agenda and City Manager Pat Trudgeon will review that for us.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Agenda item 10A approves payments in the amount of $789,220.79. Item 10B approves 2 temporary liquor licenses, one for St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church for an event on April 12th, and the other for the Roseville Rotary Club for the Taste of Rosefest, which will be held on June 26, 2025. Agenda item 10C approves the purchase of new survey equipment for Public Works and Engineering to replace the survey equipment purchased in 2004 and 2010. Item 10D approves entering into a contract with Waste Management to provide recycling services for a period of 2025 to 2030. As you will recall, the City Council approved utilizing Waste Management for recycling services at the October 7th, 2024 council meeting. And then finally, item E is approving, adopting a resolution in support of the Rice Creek Watershed District state bonding request for the Jones Lake project that will assist with stormwater management and flood mitigation in the cities of Roseville, New Brighton, and St. Anthony Village. The City Council did previously approve a resolution of support for this project in 2024, and item 10F was already acted on when it was pulled from the consent agenda. And that's the full consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Bauer, seconded by Councilmember Schroeder. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And we are nearing the end of our,
We are so efficient tonight.
we are, aren't we?
You're doing a good job.
Thank you. Hey, thanks. Amazing what you can do when you don't have time to prepare, right? So future agenda review by Mr. Trudgeon.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. We do have a meeting next Monday. We have a couple items on. One will be a presentation from 9 North from the Executive Director, Jeff Ongstead, just to talk about their activities in this past year. We also will consider a liquor license for Lunds and Byerly's, and their restaurant space is being reopened. And then we have 5 hotel licenses. Thought maybe we would get to some of them tonight, but they just need a little bit more time to complete all their work. So we have Avid Hotel, Doubletree, Key Inn, Motel 6, and Norwood Inn. I would expect some might be fairly routine, some may take a little bit longer
Okay.
for consideration. On the 7th of April, we only have one item as of yet, and that's potentially to discuss the massage therapy establishment cap. We're still working on that information, but we're targeted that date. Reminder, on April 9th, we do have ethics training for all council members and commission members and department heads. So that I'll send out a separate notification for that, but just a reminder. And then on the 14th, you may have seen the Community Development Director Gunlock's email about moving consideration from tonight to the April 14th meeting for an EDA meeting to get the final housing needs assessment and market study. We need some more time to work on that. And then at the regular meeting, stray D there at the end of work session, sorry about that, discuss the strategic planning goals and success indicators. Staff, department heads have been meeting twice a week to start working through all that stuff. So we'll be back at it again tomorrow, and we hope to present kind of our status up to that point where we would show you all the goals under each strategic direction as well as the success indicators. We're also working in the background on the objectives and the measures and metrics and all that stuff. What we want to do is show you the goals and success indicators, make sure we're on the right path, and we'll keep working on those details and bring those back at a later date, but we still want to get too deep into it if some of the goals we've come up with you would like to change or not consider. So we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but so great work. The team has really come together and been putting a lot of extra hours in, so I think you'll be happy to see what we come back with.
Nice.
And that is the future agenda.
Thank you very much. Anything from council members? Councilmember Schroeder?
I guess I just wanted to mention that we've been working on the city manager's review, and we are getting that all the feedback from the department heads and the council has been taken into consideration. And so we're going to meet again, and hopefully then in April, we'll have a date on the calendar also to do a closed meeting with the whole council to discuss that.
Very good. On schedule.
Yes, did you want to add anything?
No, that's exactly what I wanted to say as well.
Okay.
And I did attend the meeting of the Rice Larpenter Alliance, and I think there's some movement there to change the format a little bit. They have a board now, and they're going to be processing a little differently. So
Good. That's good to hear.
the mayor was there also.
And how did the luncheon go for your,
Oh, that's in May.
I'm going to be out of town.
Are you?
So, yeah, I'm sorry.
May 14th is the luncheon for NYFS. It's sort of Northeast Youth and Family Services for providing mental health care for our youth and families. So anyone who can go, they were
I
invited
figured
to
you
that.
better do a plug.
Yes,
right?
it's in Vadnais Heights at the Commons.
Comments, yep.
Yes.
And we will be bringing that up again. Anything else?
No.
Okay. The only thing left is to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Schroeder, seconded by Mr. Bauer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are
Get a
finished.
banger.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Meeting adjourned. It takes a village.